Hello, 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 people, and welcome back to another episode of the USL show. Is everybody good? What was that? What was that?
You're the USL show. I was like, ooh, we're fancy.
With the trademark. Hopefully Miami doesn't get too mad at us for stealing their thing. But you know what? We can all have the as our thing. The Ohio State, the Miami, the USL show. It's okay. That's fine. Look. There was a lot of interesting results that I don't know how predictions actually ended up doing this week, but surely they can't be any worse than I've been doing recently. So speaking of the person who has been control of the predictions, Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Going out to Atlanta tomorrow to pick up my fiance, and this is going to be the first time she sees the new apartment, in which she'll say, "You've been here a week and it's already a mess. How did you do that?" And I'm like, "Welcome to your life." Yeah, doing all right, doing all right. Alan,
Doing all right. She put you in charge of finding the apartment. That's like a lot of both pressure and also a lot of faith. So,
she has lived in this complex before, so
all
not
right.
not that bad. It was like you find the apartment as long as it's the apartment I lived in before, and I was like, got it.
She's like, you can choose any. It's like the was it Model T? You can have it in any color as long as it's in black.
Yeah. Oh man. So look, there is a lot that happened this week. Um a lot of wild results that maybe if you aren't paying attention to the league and you haven't been following some trends, maybe you're insanely shocked by, or hey, maybe it's some stuff that you really should be talking about a little bit more because some of these results have been on the horizon. But first things first, we're going to send it over to John, who is not here. But we have this. This one's a pretty fun tactics show where we talk about Roro Lopez, who, as I put out on the tweet, very famously was being talked about being over the hill, being too old and not good enough, and seconds later puts in a beautiful free kick to level it up against Phoenix, who was basically the best ever at that point, quickly shutting up anybody who had any doubts whatsoever. So all that aside, let's just go ahead and hey, let's talk to Mr. Tactics himself.
Hello and welcome into the USL Tactics Show, where today I want to talk about Roro Lopez, the star for the Sacramento Republic, who have improved from a 1.4 goal per game offense in 2022 to a 2 goal per game offense this season. You saw Lopez's very dispersed touch map earlier. Here you're seeing him sit low, drawing up a wing back, allowing Damia Villader and his teammates to advance. And this is just going to be really a 2-minute clip of why you should appreciate what Roro does every single time out. Here he gets that touch in the half space. He links with Gurr. Soon enough, it's an assist when his cross leaks through. The way that Lopez varies his positioning, puts himself into advantageous spaces to draw opponents up and open space for his teammates is paramount to why the Republic have been so good this year. Obviously, a large degree of their success has come from Russell Cicerone, really providing that number 9 kind of presence, that goal scoring that this team lacked. But when Lopez can drop deep into the midfield, become that creator, he, as you saw on the graphic, allows his teammates to get forward and really punish the opposition. You're going to see a manifold examples as we continue on here. Lopez gets that dinking touch to control. He's advancing play with the back heel into Luis Felipe here. Again and again, you're seeing the way that, for example, Luis Felipe, a natural number 6 or number 8, is able to advance because Roro is filling deeper in their formation. Again and again, though, he shows that capability to advance forward, find those late arriving shots in the box, where he's there at the edge, or rather at the sideline, spacing out to let Jack Gurr underlap, as you're seeing in this clip. Sacramento is still absolutely impossible to break down in their 5-4-1 shape, and Lopez does a great job tracking back in that context. But the way that they have found this other level, because of his distribution, Cicerone's movement, and all of the other factors, have made this team the best team in the USL to date.
Yeah, and like the guy who is not here said, who I don't know what John's doing, but he's also a very busy human being who's also allowed to have a life, believe it or not. Look, just like we got Harry in chat just dropping it on us, Sacramento looks terrifying this year. The Indomitable are looking, well, indomitable, unless they're playing that one team in the Open Cup. That was weird. Um, um, look, I don't really know what to talk about with this match. While Colorado Springs is better than I thought they would be this year, it's also I had a very low bar for them, and Sacramento is legitimately the best team in the league. This game kind of went as predicted, to be honest.
I mean, Sacramento's only allowed 1 goal all season, and if they go 4 more matches unbeaten, they'll equal what Louisville did to start last season when they started the year with 10 matches unbeaten. By my ELO rating, Sacramento is still far and away the best team in USL right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's early season, so like it might be difficult to keep this up over the course of 34 games. Injuries do happen, but right now Sacramento is head and shoulders above anybody else in the league, right? You look at, it's not that they've not been playing good teams, right? They've played Charleston, who is looking really good in the East, and managed to get a draw. They beat just cream Louisville. Even that San Antonio game, it was 2 pretty evenly matched teams, and that was last year's champion who looks just as dangerous this year as well, right? And so it's not like they're beating up on bad teams and looking good. They're playing really quality competition and are taking points from them. And when you only give up a goal, it's really easy. Only 1 goal all season long in 6 games. It's really easy to take points, and they're sitting really comfortably at the top in their play, and they're looking like they're building on the success they had last year.
Yeah, and kind of speaking of Louisville and San Antonio, just want to throw it out there. We will not be recapping that specific match, but we're going to be previewing both San Antonio and Louisville's match. So San Antonio's against Phoenix and Louisville's against Charleston. And so we figure, just like we've been doing for the rest of this season, there's going to be a lot of overlapping conversations about the match before anyway. So we didn't want to double up on conversations. So if you're waiting to hear about that match, you'll hear about it in their previews. Yeah, it's really impressive what they're doing. And I think Nicholas Murray brought this up. It's incredible that Sacramento has been as good as they have been. They're pesky. They've always been pesky. You don't beat them at home. That you just don't go there and get 3 points. You might get a point, and that's a victory, right? But it's crazy that they've done all this, had all that success, and they, for the last 3 years, haven't had a person score more than double digits. And they have Russell Cicerone that Roro Lopez can pass the ball to. That's disgusting. They're so good. Whether they'll be able to put it up for the full 34 plus playoffs, we'll see. But as of now, it's hard to think back to a team who has been this dominant this early. I mean, just 1 goal across all league matches is nuts.
And I almost wish that, and since the league is kind of doing this round robin-esque scheduling this year, that we had that Charleston game so much later in the season. You see this in a lot of leagues in Europe, that there are 2 teams that you don't expect to be very competitive, but they don't have that competitive game against each other, or that it's held so early in the season. You don't see both of those teams where they would be kind of later in the year. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about Sacramento at home, like Liverpool play at Anfield, that people just don't go to Sacramento and expect results. You had Phoenix and Birmingham last year, who are the only teams who were able to go to Sacramento and walk away with 3 points, and they scored combined 2 goals against Sacramento in those games. really unheard of to see a team do so well this early in the season. And you're looking at their kind of remaining next 4 games to kind of get to that 10-game mark against Detroit, Tulsa, Indy 11, and Orange County, as they could very well get to 10 games unbeaten to start the year.
Yeah. But you kind of brought them up, so I want to go ahead transition over to that Birmingham versus Loudoun match where God's chosen, the people's champion, Loudoun United, 3-0 the Birmingham Legion. I have I have my thoughts on it, and I have my full preview, but I want to hear from you guys first about kind of that match and what it kind of seemed like from someone from the outside perspective.
Right.
I was leaving it for you to start, Alan, but yeah, I guess Kaylor, you had said it in the group chat, but this had to be just one of the most lackadaisical efforts from Birmingham that we've seen to date. I was watching your live cast of the match, which was still always very entertaining, and it just like Loudoun kind of controlled the game by all facets of the matter. Or they had, like you mentioned, God's chosen team with the rainbow ending at the end of the stadium. But yeah, it was basically so shocking to see Birmingham just not be able to string anything together against Loudoun. Like 19-7 in shots. It didn't seem like a typical performance from both teams that we're used to historically.
Yeah, from my perspective, part of this is I have a little bit of a soft spot for Loudoun because Loudoun and the USL show have a pretty decent little relationship going, but also just the fact that Loudoun's a good team this year. They are a very good team with a very good attacking players who have been kind of underperforming. Something they're really good at, and I think a lot of San Antonio fans saw it when they played. They are so good at finding space and exploiting space. And the crazy thing about Loudoun is that they don't overcomplicate it. They only have 5 players that are older than me. I'm 23 years old. They only have 5 players older than me. And they don't overcomplicate it because when they get an open space, they shoot the ball. And that sounds like it is such a no-brainer thing of get space, shoot the ball. But how many times have we watched our own clubs get into space and you're just like, shoot the ball? And they're like, what if we got a little bit closer though? Loudoun says, screw that. I have space. By God, I am God's chosen team. He gave me the space. It would be sacrilege if I don't take it. And they just shoot, and couple that with Legion, while they've been good at holding teams from shooting, the shots that they give up have been really quality chances for the other team. They are really good at bend don't break, but they always come so close to breaking because the chances they give are really good. Couple all that with the fact that our coach's father just passed away and he wasn't with the team. So first, for the first time, we have 2 assistant coaches who are having to step up and be the head coaches. It all adds up into this big thing of Legion came out and looked horrible. And Loudoun, who is a team who have been underperforming, comes out and gets a performance that they frankly deserved.
Yeah, I think with the East being a little bit unpredictable this year, you have some teams that you probably thought would be competitive, right? Indy 11 is starting out kind of slow. Tampa Bay is definitely starting out slow. Loudoun is putting points on the board. It'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out by like week 10, as far as can Tampa Bay figure it out. Indy 11 had some nice moments. I'm sure we'll talk about them in a second. Tulsa's still kind of being Tulsa. Loudoun is putting together a campaign where they're going to be kind of fighting to stay in that playoff race. And I think that this is what we saw kind of with RGV when RGV kind of became an independent entity, that they looked better than they've ever looked. Obviously not winning the West, but I think we're seeing this with Loudoun where you're kind of taking the training wheels off a little bit as far as the point of the franchise not being a kind of a place where DC United folks go to get some game time. Obviously, they're still playing the kids, which is nice, which you're going to probably see some inconsistencies. You're going to see some great performances and some bad performances. But I think kind of allowing the team to be who they want to be, I think it shows on the pitch that guys are playing for a chance to play as a team and not just a DC United travel squad almost. They do have a game in hand, and if they pick up 3 points on that game in hand, they're right up there in the 3-4 spot, and that's really good for them. Again, I think they started out kind of hot last year and kind of fell to maybe where they should be. So again, this is another team that I'm cautiously optimistic about, but there's teams below them that I think can put together a pretty good campaign that they're going to be fighting for to stay in that playoff hunt.
Yeah, Alan, you mentioned their hot start from last season. They were actually unbeaten to start their first 3 games of the year and had 7 points after 3 games. This year, it took them 5 points to get to it's 5 games to get to 7 points. But if you compare it to last season, they were stuck on 7 points until their 12th game of the year when they got their 8th point. So this has a team that could basically surpass anything Loudoun's ever done in their history. And I think, as Harry had said in chat, that not only are they going to be a playoff team, I think they're going to be a very tricky game for any team they're going to draw, that it's going to be tough to prepare for them. And it's just someone that you're not going to want to run into in the first round.
It's because they got a Pegasus, right? We can all agree it's because they got Pegasus McPegasus face, which he keeps saying it's not his name, but you don't open your online voting for your horse's name and it not become Pegasus McPegasus face. Stop running from your face, horse. From your fate, horse, please. Alan, you brought it up. Indy goes out to Irvine, California. I accidentally called it Irving yesterday, and that was embarrassing. Irvine, California, and Mark Lowry looked a little bit to be a slave of his system, kind of like we talked about last week. And something I talked about with Orange and Black Soccer Cast last night, I kept seeing on Twitter, hey, look, Indy was dominating this game. Indy was dominating this game. Indy was dominating this game. Were they dominating the game, or did they just have possession? Because if you watch the game, they had the ball on the outside of the 18. But how many times did that ball actually go inside the 18-yard box? Not often. They were passing the ball side to side to side to side. Just a little underlying number, some numbers to throw out there. They had 484 passes against Orange County, and only, I believe, 89 of them were considered to be progressive passes, meaning they were going forward in a meaningful way. Almost half of their passes were lateral passes. Meaning, yeah, they had the ball, but they were going side to side. And it's something we've seen with Lowry teams in the past. And it worked really well when he was at El Paso, because whenever he was at El Paso, they had these players. They would go side to side. Somebody would get a little overzealous, try to jump in, get an interception, and try to start a counterattack. And then they would just play the ball to the channel, and they would score so many times in a game. But Orange County came out, and sure, you could say Indy dominated the game, but Orange County was dictating this entire game because they did not lunge in. They never once really just showed their hand and said, we're going to jump in and try to start something. They got their lead and said, okay, Indy, you need to break us down because we will not do it for you. And Indy didn't know what to do with that, and they came out with a 1-0 loss.
I think looking at this one, I do agree that Indy at times, yes, their possession statistics are great. But I think that one thing that really was probably frustrating for Indy fans is I believe Indy 11 had 420,000 crosses that went nowhere. It really was super cross dominant, and they were being it didn't seem like they were trying to deviate from that plan. And I don't know if it was something they saw watching film, or if that's just the way they play, right? But looking at way Indy 11 plays, that's kind of, it seems like they have double-digit crosses every game, 20, 30 crosses every game. And it wasn't successful, and they never tried to deviate from that. They never tried to mix up their play. I thought they had a couple of nice opportunities. The Orange County keeper, let me look up his name because I don't want to be
Cropper.
the keeper. Yeah,
Cropper.
I thought he had a pretty nice game, keeping this one at 1-0. And with Orange County, this seemed to be kind of an old school Orange County win where they get a goal on a PK that was, probably fairly given. It was a little bit soft in my book, but we've seen Quinn make these fouls before where, his feet get tangled because he's coming from behind. And they were successful with their really big one opportunity that they had with the ball in the spot. I thought Orange County did create some nice looks and just didn't capitalize, but were really good defensively in keeping Indy at bay. And I thought Orange County should walk away pretty happy with this win, in that it's 3 points at home, which is great for them. But I do also think Orange County has a long way to go to become kind of a threat in the West.
And to at least kind of look back over at Indy, honestly, you'd have to be really concerned that they've gone the last 3 games without scoring a goal. It's basically been nearly 5 hours since their last goal scored. It's elapsed 298 minutes, and their schedule ahead isn't doing them any favors between Monterey Bay, Pittsburgh, Loudoun, and Sacramento as their next 4. And it's just one that, if it's going to get figured out when, and you're not going to clinch playoff spots this early in the season, but you can definitely play yourself out of one right now.
You say, is it something they saw on the film? And the answer is yes, Alan. They've only had 2 goals scored against them this year. Orange County has only had 2 goals scored against them that did not come from a cross from a wide area. Only 2. And every other goal scored against them, the only other ones was Mushkalusa scored his goal from that really close angle shot that went top corner the other way that I think Cropper should have done a lot better on. And the other one was this goal against El Paso, where it was a corner where player at the back post clears it out, goes to step up. Yuma gets the ball, crosses the ball in vertically, but puts the ball back into the box. And it's a nice finish. Those are the only 2 goals of every goal that they have conceded to not come from some kind of pass from the wide area. And it looked like Indy saw that and we're like, we're going to do that because eventually they're going to fall apart. And either Orange County realized that they were really susceptible to these chances, or Indy just didn't have the players or the just night to do it. And that's really concerning because you still see on film that Orange County is susceptible to those chances. Even Indy had a couple of chances with those. I don't know. Just going to throw this out there. I can't remember who it was at the very end of the game. But, Orange County did have one of the biggest sitters I've ever seen missed. Just penalty spot or even a little closer and somehow skied it. I don't want to be the person to say I finished that. I probably don't, but I do think I put that one on target. I'll be honest with you.
And how mad does Olaski have to be? Because Olaski probably scores,
yes,
but he gives it up because it's an even easier opportunity in his brain. And I'm sure as the kick goes over, he's just like, "Come on, dude, we gotta do better." But yeah, it was one of those if you say oh, he's gotta do better, it's in that moment, it's who knows what's going through that player's brain. And for one of us, I would be absolutely nerve-wracked to know that the goal is that wide open, and I would have scuffed it. I probably would have kicked the ground, fell over, and then the defenseman just walks up and clears the ball. I'm not out here saying I can do anything. I'm not going to do better than that. But I'm sure Olaski, who's this like golden boots winner type of player, to give up probably a 70% chance he's scoring for something that he thinks is going to be absolutely 100% to go up 2-0 and essentially ice the game. I'm sure he was pretty pissed off, and I do think the scoreline maybe flatters Indy a little bit. But yeah, 7 successful crosses out of 400 million, I believe, is the amount they've taken. Really shows that maybe they're trying to get the ball in some. I mean, I think they got the ball into some pretty decently dangerous areas. They were just not successful in that approach, which gives you some hope for Indy 11, right? You're getting the ball at least to the place where you're able to cross the ball in 400 billion times. So that's something you can probably work on. And I think that's what they mentioned on the broadcast was like they need to work on finishing. And they were like defense. Maybe that was Orange County. I don't remember which team they're referring to, but it did seem like there are horses on Indy 11 that you think will eventually figure this out. But it's just not clicking yet. And we had this conversation too regarding Indy 11 last year, right? It's like, oh, just give him time. And so I would say patience on Indy 11, but I think you have a short leash on this season too because of what happened last year.
For sure. But we need to move on because we got to get to the League One part of this segment. But in this being the League One part of the segment, how about a different segment? Welcome to the first ever episode of No Meaningless Statistic. This is one of my favorite ones. And Ryan, I'm just going to go ahead and let you take this one away, pal.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of No Meaningless Statistics. I'm Ryan Allen from USL Show, and this show is just going to be more designed around just those interesting stats and connections I find across the USL with a few fun, spurious correlations kind of thrown in here. But today's episode is centered around South Georgia Tormenta. They had won USL League One last season in the 2022 year and has been a mainstay within USL League One ever since the league's foundation. But they have 3 random correlations that connect them to the Los Angeles Lakers, the Tennessee Volunteers football team, and Adam Wainwright's baseball career. Starting with the Lakers, did you know that with a 97.7% confidence interval, the number of losses the Lakers have in a year correlates directly to Tormenta's points in the season, particularly in 2020 and 2021 when the Lakers and Tormenta all received the same number of points and losses in a year. Next, you can also compare the number of wins Tormenta has to the number of wins Tennessee football has. This is a 99.6% confidence interval. For each of them going through the same kind of ups and downs over the past few years of 2019 to now. And finally, you can compare the number of losses St. Louis Cardinals pitcher Adam Wainwright has in a season compared to the number of wins Tormenta has in a year at a 97.3% confidence interval. But those are just 3 of the random spurious correlations I found between Tormenta FC and their other impact across sports. I hope everyone has enjoyed watching this first episode. Thank you all for watching.
You're on mute.
To the absolute joy of Cardinals fans and to the absolute dismay of Tennessee Volunteers fans. Early on, it looks like Tormenta may not be getting those high win totals this season, looking very slow off the mark, even though they did last year as well. Look, there's something about me that almost wants Tormenta to lose just so Tennessee football can also start losing again. So there's a little selfish part of that. I'm sorry, Statesboro people. I'm sorry, Bolt, but Bolt hates Smokey anyway, so that's fine. But in this match between Tormenta and Lexington gets their first ever home win, their first ever win. And I really wish Tyler was here, but I know Tyler was super excited about this match. And it was a pretty even game when you look at it. But if you look at a lot of stats, I mean, they look inflated towards Tormenta's way just a little bit. I think if you look at a lot of the underlying numbers, while I'm excited for Lexington because they looked like they were finally getting those chances, They look like they're finally taking the chances that they've been getting all year long, and I've been really high on Lexington. I also feel like I feel more concern for Tormenta than excitement for Lexington. That feels a little bit rude.
I mean, it's good for Lexington to get that kind of opening win, especially to do so against the league champions. It's like it always seems like whenever you have that new expansion team, the one thing that really just kind of galvanizes the sport and just gets everyone just believing again is just, can you get that first win? And to do so against Tormenta, to do so at home is just a great kind of result for Lexington. And admittedly, it was something that a lot of us on the show really picked against. We were all pretty high on Tormenta getting the result here, or at minimum taking a draw. And I know I think it was Lexington's supporters group keeps responding to every one of the tweets that I share of our picks, picking against them. And I think we did pick them this week, or at least pick their match. So we'll see if that kind of continues. But yeah, Tormenta had the at least advantage in shots, 9-7. They're up 4-3 in shots on target, and they're still third in the league, although one game more than everyone else. So it there's still at least kind of time to kind of turn things around for them, even if they have lost 3 of their first 5.
Yeah, I thought Lexington did a pretty good job of making it difficult for Tormenta to build out. Really kind of blocked a lot of passes through the midfield. Tormenta had a couple of moments where they were able to build out, but eventually they just were trying to hit that home run ball. And maybe some of that is the state of play, right? We talked about that with Indy 11 and OC, where OC is the one no lead, and they're kind of almost giving Indy 11 the ball and defending with the lead. Tormenta was a little bit wasteful. Like it was almost very similar to Indy 11 and OC, where Tormenta got in some dangerous places, but were really kind of wasteful in the final third with the ball, not really creating tons of really good looks. They thought they had a goal, but it was correctly called offside. And it was really good for Lexington to kind of rally after they give up the penalty to draw a level. And they kept it was an interesting high press, counter press. It really meant that Tormenta had to kick the ball long. And then Lexington really recovered the ball. I wouldn't say all the time, but a lot of times pretty well. So I was pretty impressed with Lexington's ability to put Tormenta under pressure and to make them make a lot of mistakes. And it's really kind of what leads to that second goal of kind of just that pressure being put on the back line and the goalkeeper. Maybe a little bit of a lucky header to get it from that far on the goal. But, that's the kind of goal that you get when in soccer, that is kind of like that dagger, right? It's a cruel sport where, a good bounce your way means the difference between 3 points and 1. I thought a draw was probably a fairer result, maybe. But again, I think Tormenta is really kind of struggling with the ability to put it all together in the final third, which I think they can, right? I think if they find themselves a little bit less wasteful possession, they can score some goals and really kind of find that form. And with 8 of the 7 teams who make the playoffs apparently in US League One, I'm not really that worried about Tormenta. I think they're a better team. They're a playoff team still. And then once they get in the playoffs, it's, we saw 3 versus 4 last year. So it's whoever makes it can make it. So I think Lexington should be proud of the way they played. I thought they played well, pretty defensively solid. And Tormenta still needs to figure their lives out a little bit.
For me with Tormenta, where I kind of stand is that they're kind of on par with their general performances, right? Like if you look at all the underlying numbers and say, well, they press about as much as they normally do. They're going for those long home run balls like they normally do. They have similar possession stats. They have similar everything. Every underlying number tells you that they are the same exact team from last year. And it's kind of where you have to sit there and say, is it the players, right? Because the system, according to the numbers, hasn't changed. And I don't want to sound like that's a little bit rude, but I mean, they lost big parts of their back line. I mean, their right back is gone. The star center back, oh my gosh, Phelps is gone. I mean, people haven't talked about how big Phelps leaving is. He has been at that club, I believe, since 2017, all the way when they were back in the PDL, which is now USL League 2. He had been there since they were semi-professional. And that's a big gap left in your team. And it's not me saying that their players aren't good enough, but how much of what we saw last year, because they had a dreadful start to last season too, how much of this system is not really based off of a system rather than based off of eventually building that chemistry? Because Tormenta is amazing at promoting their academy players. They do it all the time where they promote their academy players and suddenly they're amazing. It's like watching the Rays call up another pitcher and suddenly they're another Cy Young contender who then goes out for Tommy John. But like, it's just a consistent cycle, and how much of the system is built for Tormenta to have that chemistry and just let them do their thing, because every number tells you that it's the same team that won it all last year. And so maybe what I'm saying is, Tormenta fans, don't worry, because everything looks right. Everything is looking correct on paper. All you need to do is get the chemistry, which never shows up on paper.
To compare them to last season, through their first 5 games, they conceded 1 goal. And through this first 5 games, they've conceded 8. And if you take away their, which probably should have been an offsides goal against North Carolina, the game that they really only looked the most impressive in was that 2-0 victory over Greenville.
Yeah. And speaking of Greenville, we are getting into weird territory with Greenville. They took on Ford Madison, and Ford Madison just destroyed Greenville. Spoiler, check Twitter tomorrow. We have something about Ford Madison coming out. Hint, hint. Ford Madison is really good at home during their home openers, but also Greenville has only 1 win from 13 matches going from last season. And this is not me saying, well, the only thing that can change is if Harks is fired. No one wants anybody to be fired. The only time I want somebody out of a job is if they are just genuinely a horrible human being. Like, that's that's really it. If they are just a bad human, then, by all means. But Harks doesn't seem to be that kind of guy, and things are just weird right now. You couple with the fact that Ford Madison has the best back line in the league, and they have a solid goalkeeper, and they have a player in Cheney who looks like a beast. And you couple all that together, you get Ford Madison, who are finally looking like they're putting it together after 4 years of being just average at best, against a Greenville team who right now looks average at best.
I mean, just from watching this game, the highlight of it has to be Ford Madison's 4th goal off of Greenville's saved penalty that they immediately spring a counterattack on and score at the other end of the pitch. It seemed like if that was one of those, it almost just epitomized kind of Greenville starts the year. And it's like, when there's like a glimmer of hope, it just kind of all collapses. And it's like, well, when everything can go wrong, it has gone wrong. And it's just something you were concerned with. I mean, this is a Greenville team that you're not used to seeing struggle this much. I mean, they didn't have a 3-loss streak of games last season, and everyone in USL, by the time you got to the 5th game played, had at least 1 win, and we're just 2 matches away from Greenville not having a win to start the year.
And speaking of that, I want to go ahead and pull this goal up, because I don't think there's some championship people who haven't seen this goal. I just want to share it. I just want to show it to you, because, oh my Lord.
32-year-old Aaron Walker from Woodstock, Georgia, takes it forward, and it's saved. Bert Shipman is up for the task, and now Madison are breaking away the other side. Onan with a flock of Mingos with him. Cheney still going, and Cheney scores from one end to the other. Mingos with 4.
I mean, that got to be a 5-on-1 at some point, and there was still 2 more that were following behind them to make it basically a 7-on-3 if you include the 2 other Greenville defenders following.
It was the Battle of the Bastards scene from Game of Thrones, where the goalkeeper is Jon Snow just standing there with just all of these flamingos. And unfortunately, the opposite thing happened. Spoilers, and he just got run over. That was it. That visual of like half of the team versus the one lonely defender and the goalkeeper is quite amazing.
How long do you think the commentator had that there's a flock of Mingos just ready in the back pocket, just waiting for some time to just whip that one out? Because I think I would have burnt that one a long time before then. I think I would have wasted that one. Just, that's a great call. This really has just kind of been the epitome of the season, though, for Greenville, is that it just feels like nothing is going right, where everything should be going right. They have the players. I mean, heck, you're looking at you're watching these players. I mean, the person I believe who's like calling for the offsides is Tyler Pollock, who's been a star in the championship and in League One now. They have guys. Their center back, Daniel Wu. I am a big fan of his. I'm surprised that he went to League One. I thought there was going to be several high-end championship clubs interested in him. And the fact that he went to Greenville, I was like, man, Greenville's just going to run it back. But I understand that they have injuries going on, and there's always context, right? But also, you feel like with a coach as a high stature as Harks, that it would be figured out by now. But I don't know. Maybe not. Also, I just want to show the image because you brought it up. Hold on. Wonderful podcast host here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at 2021, that was the last time that Greenville had lost 4 games in a row, and this was 1 goal short of their record worst ever defeat in club history when they lost 5-1 last season. This isn't a Greenville team we're ever used to seeing, and they have an opportunity this week to be fair against second bottom of the table Central Valley Fuego this week. It's just, if it doesn't happen, then I wouldn't say you're hitting the panic button, but I would say you're finding it.
It's just funny to look at. You have guy who's stopped defending. Hey, ref, he's offsides. Another guy who's kind of defending, and a poor goalkeeper who he's praying. He's just praying. That's all he's doing. Just hoping that somehow he kicks it right at his face. Oh man, it was a heck of a goal. Good save and just great counterattack with all that. Anything else on these matches before we go very quickly through our predictions? No. Okay. Let's go ahead and we are going to go out to Patriots Point, where Ben Pierman's Charleston Battery is taking on longtime foe of Danny Cruz's Louisville City, who Louisville City get the monkey off their back of just being just average and looking bad against a really good San Antonio team, but we'll talk about soon. They look good, and they get an exciting winner. Is that enough to take them down to Patriots Point and get all 3? Alan?
I'm going to go with Charleston on this one. I'm riding kind of a hot hand. I think as far as form is concerned, I think Charleston's put together some pretty nice looks. I wouldn't be surprised if Lou City gets something out of this, but I think Charleston has enough, especially at home, to get by Louisville here.
It's interesting. Charleston is one of 3 teams right now who are unbeaten in the league alongside Sacramento, and for some reason, Las Vegas, who has 4 draws and nothing else. But I still am looking at this as Louisville had a really good performance this past week to get the 1-0 victory over San Antonio. And Charleston this past week had that very much a kind of prove it week that they got a win over Tampa Bay and then went on the road again and got the win over Tulsa, that they're going to be a very difficult team. I just think Louisville finds a way to just squeak a victory past Charleston.
What with Louisville, I mean, if you really look at the match, they didn't create a lot. They didn't do a whole lot throughout the game, but they did it when it mattered. And that just always seems to be Louisville City, right? They look horrible, and we've seen it years past. I mean, heck, there was a couple years ago where I think they were one of the last teams to make it to the playoffs, and they won it all. That's just kind of what they do. They just kind of look average, and then they go and win the game anyway. Charleston's back line is a little bit more suspect to me. They've been tested, but I don't know how much they've been truly tested. I mean, they gave up 2 goals to Hartford, who, despite having a good attack, has looked pretty empty on the going forward. I think Lou City gets more chances, and this is one of those prove it matches for me of, go at the king, that's just kind of what you have to do. And until Charleston proves to me that they are truly the kings of the East right now, and Lou City isn't, I'm just going to take Lou City. But, I mean, if Charleston somehow comes out and 4-0 Lou City, I don't think I'd be incredibly shocked either, because that just feels like how this season's going for them. Moving on, we talked about them. San Antonio, do they get the monkey off their back, which is Phoenix? Because for some reason, Phoenix only beats San Antonio. That's just that's their favorite thing to do. In order to avoid that problem, San Antonio decided to make a little signing, Jorge Hernandez. If you haven't heard of him, you should. He's decent at soccer, just kind of good. And San Antonio literally loses 1 game this season. They said, that's it, signing an all USL player.
I mean, San Antonio, I think what made San Antonio really dangerous last year was not just their good defense, but their ability to score multiple goals and really have an offensive firepower that really made their backline even more dangerous. And I think that's kind of what they've been lacking this year, is just that ability to put teams away with multiple goals. They don't score against SAC, which is not surprising because right now no one is. They don't score against Lou City. And, some of the performances this year, a 1 goal against Loudoun, 1 goal against Colorado Springs, 2 goals against Monterey Bay. It just hasn't quite been as convincing as it was toward the end of last season. And they still have time. And I think with some of these signings, they can really put it together. I do think Phoenix was one of their bogey teams last year. And so I am going to make every San Antonio fan extremely happy today. And I'm going to pick Phoenix. I think Phoenix is starting to put things together, and for some reason, Phoenix is to San Antonio as Oakland is into San Diego, and I think Phoenix gets something out of it.
Interestingly, looking back from just historical records from last season, San Antonio only had 2 instances where they went 2 consecutive games without a win. But you have to go all the way back to the 9th and 10th game of their 2019 season to find the last time they went 2 consecutive games without scoring a goal. And that's just something we haven't seen a San Antonio team do as of late. I do think they get 3 points here out of a game against Phoenix. It just seems like it's going to be a tougher year this season for the defending champs.
And to say it's less convincing is, it feels a little bit rude, because you're coming from a really high bar to a high bar. Like, yeah, it's a disappointing season, all things considered. But I mean, they still look, their defense still looks great. And Phoenix, while their attack looks good, I like what I see out of their attack. I also don't know if they can break down San Antonio's defense like, they were able to do against Legion, for example, where I just don't think San Antonio is just going to allow those same chances. So I'm going to take San Antonio here and watch them be, once again, the bogey team and it not matter whatsoever. And it's going to be Phoenix by 100. We're going to make a nice little League One sandwich because this is something that's always bothered me whenever people say we're going to make a blank sandwich between words, but they refer to as the bread games as the sandwich, but it's what's in the middle as the sandwich. Small rant. Like I could call this a championship sandwich and say, yeah, that's because there's 2 championship games on each side, but it's the middle. That's what makes the sandwich. That's my TED Talk. We're going to go out to Charlotte, who is top of the league and rightfully so. They are taking on Omaha, who I'm still not convinced. But they have this guy in between the sticks named Nuhu who does not care about your attackers or your feelings.
Yeah, I picked Charlotte on this one. I do think that Nuhu can keep Union Omaha in the match. But the last time I checked, he hasn't scored a goal this season. So while you can keep a guy in, and he might, like, I'm not just like
he did it last year, didn't he?
Just like San Antonio, I'm not keeping anything. Like, we're not saying now is forever, right? But I think keeping a team in the game is more likely to result in a draw. But I think Charlotte is gonna win this one.
Was Nuhu the one that scored the goal last year?
Also, fair point.
One.
So he hasn't scored this year. That's what I'm saying, which is not actually an accurate statement. And I also agree in the sandwich, a meatball sandwich is not meatballs with bread in the middle. A salami sandwich is not salami with. So I can see the logic of your point.
Thank you. Who was it out of? Oh, never mind. It was Crystal Palace, who did the hot dog sandwich thing. And I'm pretty sure Eze was just sat there, was like, they're different. And they were like, why? And he was like, the bread's different, and just walked away. And I was like, out of all the arguments, that's my favorite one. The bread's different. Sure.
What would you say, hamburgers or sandwiches, or are they a different type of?
The bread's different. That's going to be my answer. That's my answer going forward. If you could ask me about any sandwich, the bread's different. What does that mean?
So is it just needing to, and I'll quickly say that I think Nuhu's going to keep Omaha in this match and they'll get a draw out of this. But if it just needs to be meat inside of a bread, would cheesy crust on a pizza be considered a sandwich? Or would any stuffed crust type?
Wouldn't that just make it a ravioli? The bread's different.
Is a Pop-Tart a ravioli?
The bread's different. I don't know what else to tell you at this point. It's going to be my only answer going forward, and at this point, it's the only one I accept. I am going to take Omaha here. I hate making it as simple as Nuhu good, but Nuhu good. That sounds way too simplistic, and I want to break down to the nitty-gritty because I think the speed of Charlotte is going to catch Omaha out. But the thing is that Nuhu's always good for at least 2 amazing saves a game. And that might be all they need him for. But even though Charlotte is incredibly fast, I wouldn't be shocked if Omaha decides to sit back a little bit, decide to forget the offside trap a little bit, or offside trap, and kind of do what Bob Lilly's been doing and just say, we're going to drop back a little bit. They will not catch us out. We might concede going forward a little bit so they do not score. And I think if Omaha can stay in this game, I think they might be able to outlast that wave. And honestly, there's nothing more degrading and more debilitating than seeing a keeper just save everything. And by the end of the game, you're saying eventually one has to go in, right? But by the time that you are pleading and begging for a goal to go in, another one just went to your own net. I'm taking Omaha. Moving on, we have a match a match this season. We're talking about the Miami FC taking on the undefeated and also winless Las Vegas Lights, whom I thought Las Vegas was going to be good coming into the season, and they have proved to be good, but they have also proven to be bad. And Miami is a team that has broken my heart too many times. And I said it preseason, I refuse to believe in them until they give me a reason. That there's too much talent for them to be bad, and I don't understand it. And to make matters worse, Miami's at home. So,
Yeah, I picked a draw because why not? It's Vegas. That's what they do. I think Miami's been caught up in a couple of those too, where I thought I've picked Miami as like locks to like win, and then they like don't do that, and then that makes me mad. Where like the Memphis 901 match, I thought Miami was going to get something out of that, and then they draw 1-1. Detroit City 0-0, both of those at home. And so I'm going to go with like they're just going to be the kings of consistency, right? 1-1 against Pittsburgh, 1-1 against Tulsa at home. They're just going to be consistent, and they're going to continue to draw. And Vegas is going to be consistent, and they'll continue to draw, and Vegas will run their undefeated streak one more game.
Is this going to be our first draw lock of the season?
I think that was Gio, but
and he missed it
earlier,
last week.
and he missed it, and so I almost did that as a draw lock of the week, just for the heck of it. But yeah.
I don't know. I think Las Vegas has been handed a really tough start to the season. They've done just as well as probably one could have expected when you have the year start with 6 road games, and this being the penultimate one before they have a tough meeting against San Antonio before they're finally able to go into their own home match. But yeah, Miami's just been so challenging to figure out this year. I mean, they haven't scored more than 1 goal in any of their games this season. It's frustrating to watch them, and you add on to the fact that they're playing at home. It makes it difficult. I think Las Vegas is the perfect team for them to get a confidence-boosting win, which is what I'm very optimistically picking here. But it's almost like that storm of like the teams are just so consistently drawing and not performing that it might be a very low-scoring and unexciting game.
I can't remember who it was, but it was like 20 minutes into the Las Vegas Memphis game, which we could talk about Memphis and their now thick king between the sticks. Bless them. And I can't remember who it was. It was like 20 minutes in. They had probably one of the even bigger sitter than Orange County has. He was directly in front of goal, center, right in the middle, takes the shot, and it dribbles wide. I can understand skying one. Being less than 3 yards in front of the net in the center of the goal and hitting it wide confuses me. This game could have been 3-2. Las Vegas could have got on the end of it. Ledesma comes back and does Ledesma things because he's good at soccer. I'm taking Vegas here. I can't believe I'm saying this. I believe in Vegas more than Miami, especially with Miami at home, who refuses to win at home. I like what Vegas is doing. I think the people they have brought in have been quality signings. I think their defense has proved to be pretty good. And going against a team who hates scoring, going against a team who hates the score, I mean, it seems to be a good recipe for Las Vegas to come out with their first ever win and Miami to be just sad. Are you watching it, Alan?
No.
It's fine.
The San Diego Sockers game just started, and they're in the playoffs, so I got to get the Twitch stream going.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of San Diego Sockers, let's talk about a little bit of San Diego soccer. San Diego's taking on Tampa Bay. As someone said earlier, Neil Collins is washed, so this should be an easy game, right?
I think San Diego is lucky that they're catching Tampa Bay at this part of the season. I think they got lucky last year as well, where Tampa Bay wasn't the Tampa Bay that ended the season. They were able to get a 3-2 win on the road. There's some injury question marks on the back line. Kazanzu went out with the apparent hamstring issue at the end of last game, which means you're probably not starting your preferred back three. But Koke Vegas has stepped up his shot stopping abilities to match the gloriousness of his hair. And so that's been kind of a plus. Conway has scored in 3 straight matches. Charlie Adams has assisted in 3 straight matches, league matches, I should say. So San Diego, I think, is playing pretty well, especially at home. And so I think San Diego has a really good chance of winning this match with Tampa Bay traveling. There's a midweek Open Cup match on Wednesday, which I do think has some bearing on this match as well. And then I have to look up who Tampa Bay is playing after the weekend.
Detroit City.
Probably maybe a little bit more focused on Detroit City than San Diego being in the conference. So I think San Diego has a good chance of winning this one. But we don't want to be the team that Tampa Bay figures it out on.
Yeah, I picked San Diego to win this one as well. And just looking back on everything, the only team that's held them scoreless this year is Sacramento. And you just can't say the same about Tampa Bay, who's been held scoreless by Charleston and Birmingham, losing those games consecutively by a combined 5-0. I think Loyal will continue a good run of form they've had since that loss to Sacramento. They've been unbeaten in 3, and I think they get a win.
I mean, you say they haven't. I mean, they went the 2 matches without scoring against Charleston and then Legion. Then they got 2 against Miami, and they didn't score against Charleston the second time either. It was one of the worst own goals I've seen in a long time. It was bad. And it's almost to the point that I think Pierman told, I think it was Archer, just kick it really hard back there because we only like to play when we're losing. So he was like, I'll pay it. I'll give you a little bit of extra money. It's a goal scoring bonus. Here's an own goal on your record. And now we're going to win. I mean, Tampa Bay, and I hate to be this simplistic, but as long as they stay in this 4-4-2 out of possession, they're going to continue to lose games. I hate to be that simplistic, but they just do not have enough backline coverage to absorb what's going wrong. It just doesn't look good right now. And you say, well, it worked against Miami, but Miami has looked anemic on attack. They have players, but they just look like shells of themselves. And it's really easy for you to get the front foot when you're never on the back foot. And that's not going to happen against San Diego. San Diego's too talented on the attack. If this is a match with San Diego's backline's a little bit injured, it maybe becomes a track meet. But if it's a track meet, I still lean San Diego. I'm taking Loyal. So all that said, we're just going to get into, I guess, the very end of the show so we can get Alan watching a little bit of Soccers. So Alan, some final thoughts from you, pal.
Some good news for Tampa Bay is I am rooting for the Tampa Bay Lightning to to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Former Anaheim Duck Corey Perry has made it to 3 straight finals before this year, has lost all 3 of them. So I'm rooting for Corey Perry to become the Buffalo Bills of the NHL and make it to his 4th straight Finals Cup appearance. He played for Dallas, made it, lost to what team did they lose? They lost to a team.
They lost to the Lightning, right?
He played for Dallas, lost, switched teams to another team who beat Dallas, made it to the Stanley. I think it was the Canadiens. No, not the Canadiens. That can't be right.
The Habs.
Switched to that team, made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, lost to Tampa Bay, switched to Tampa Bay, made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, and lost. And now he's still sticking with Tampa Bay. So I'm rooting for him to get back to the finals one more time. So go Tampa Bay Lightning.
I'm only rooting for the Lightning in the first round because we need to keep up traditions of the Toronto Maple Leafs losing in the first round, which is an added bonus that we're all cheering for. It's ironic that the Stanley Cup resides most of its time in Toronto at the Hockey Hall of Fame, but it hasn't been in the Maple Leafs' possession in quite some time. But I guess in terms of movies I've seen lately, I saw the Dungeons and Dragons film, which was surprisingly a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching it. It was just a decently fun action film.
Nice. When it comes to the whole hockey, Birmingham, we have playoff hockey going on, and it's really fun. They're actually really good this year, which means I can't wait for them to break my heart again and lose. That should be really exciting. Can't wait for that to happen. At what point do you start signing Perry because you know you're going to make the playoffs and then make the Stanley Cup final? And then at what point do you not sign him because you know you're going to lose the final?
Yeah.
Is there ever?
Looked it up. Yeah, I don't know. Dallas lost to Lightning.
Okay.
Signed with Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Lost to the Lightning. Signed with the Lightning, and the Lightning lost in the finals.
That's so tough. To
be fair, Perry is 37, so I'm not sure how many more games he has left in him.
Years don't matter in hockey. For some, I think I remember a couple years ago, I saw somebody sign a 15-year contract in hockey. Despite it being one of the most physical sports, for some reason they really can play forever. And I don't know if it's because the ice has less impact on joints than running does. Like skating has less impact than running, but also you would think being slammed into boards and getting hit in the face constantly is also not good for the body. So I don't know what that means.
I mean, to be fair, Corey Perry has played for 2 Mighty Ducks in his career. He was with the AHL Cincinnati Mighty Ducks, and then the last season of Anaheim being the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, which they should bring back, by the way.
How do you get rid of that? When you're the Mighty Ducks, at the very least, like, you look at it and say, we're going to sell a lot of merch.
When Disney sells you to somebody else and they don't want to be associated with Disney anymore. But they brought back the original like eggplant logo with like the orange color, which I thought was a nice touch. As far as I almost said kit, but sweater goes.
I'm just saying, the moment MLS kits and some USL kits are selling for the same price as a sweater, that's where I'm out. Like, they're at least with sweaters, I'm warm. Whenever I buy a kit, especially for that expensive, all it is tight and makes me look fat, and I just feel bad about myself. So you're really not helping your consumer out here. Just saying.
If you're going to charge that price for a kit, keep it for more than 1 year.
Yes, please. But look, thank you all so much for listening. Tomorrow, Kit Season comes out, another episode of Kit Season. And keep an eye on the old Twitter. We have another no meaningless statistic coming out. It's a really fun one. Spoilers, it's Forward Madison. Check it out. Thank you all so much for listening along. And last time, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. This and every episode is brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. Find podcasts and other written work at bgn.fm. Once again, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys again next week.